occasional elk that ventured out at night. Checking the back seat again, he once more admired the ingenuity of his handiwork, the simplicity, the subtlety of his methods. He had been a student of Western history, in particular, American colonial history, that all-too-familiar swamp of superstitious dread and cult-like devotion to the ruling magistrates. That culture of opportunistic accusations, as during the Salem witch trials, where the remnants of medieval British law held strong, guilty until proven innocent. But even with debtors' prisons and oppressive religious rulings, outright torture had been outlawed. However, like good apparatchiks, the black-coated judges and their willing constables found a cunning way around the ban. They devised the bow. Economically, it only involved 2 lengths of rope. A prisoner was laid prone on the ground, belly down. The first length of rope tied his hands behind his back. One end of the second bound his ankles. The knees then bent backward at a sharp angle. The other was formed into a slip noose and secured around his neck. The prisoner was forced to bow his back to keep the noose from tightening. Eventually, no matter how strong, the muscles in his back would give out. His head would drop, the noose would tighten, and, unless he revealed what the magistrates wanted to hear, he would strangle himself. He would strangle himself. Technically, by the letter of the law, the jurists could not be responsible. Their consciences could remain clear. Ingenious, really. The woman lying contorted in the back seat had been a famous gymnast as a teenager, but since she had become doughy and overweight, continuing to eat as though she were still lithe and active, in training for the Soviet Olympics. She had remained quite strong, though, and had held out longer than any who had come before. Almost 4 minutes. A record. She'd also not cried or begged as the others had. Instead, she had spat and raged and sworn at him. A fighter till the very end. It had added immeasurably to the piquancy of their shared experience, accounting perhaps for his heightened exhilaration now. He saw the turn-off to his dacha. For the briefest moment, he thought to keep driving the dozen or so kilometers on to Hattin. Now abandoned, it'd been the town where, as a boy, he'd dreamed about serving as a policeman. He'd imagined having a new uniform and a warm woolen coat with boots of good leather. But the war had started, and German soldiers were soon thick as flies across the countryside. In 1942, not yet 20, he'd joined the resistance instead. There was something delicious about the thought of performing his planting at the official park at Hattin, to return in the fall to watch scores of respectful visitors laying flowers on the war memorials and then stooping to harvest the fruits of his labors. But there was no guarantee that he could return when the park was open in September. The fall would be a very busy time for him. Momentous events were taking place. The Belarusian Soviet Republic would soon declare its sovereignty, and full independence from the Soviet Union would follow within a year's time. Of that he was certain. So he turned and drove around the dacha slowly, skirting the broad sweep of the lawn, thick with fibrous grasses and wildflowers, and pulling into the deeper shadows at the back of the house. He parked, his headlights illuminating a stand of birch trees. They'd been tall even when he was a boy. Opening one of the rear doors, he pulled a pocket knife from his coat and deftly cut the ropes binding the woman, gently pulling them from her stiffening limbs. He dragged her from the back seat and, with some effort, across the dirt until he felt